Got a shipment in from Sweet Maria's, and I am today going to try pan roasting green coffee. It's just a small amount. This is about 45 grams, and I'm hoping for about 30 grams, a single serving just, to emerge from this. This is the Java Sunda Mayang from Sweet Maria's. And I have this over at first high heat and then turn it down to kind of medium high. And this temperature gauge here on the infrared, because this is a shiny pan, isn't going to be actually accurate. Like it says it's 188 right now, it's not 188. It's way hotter than that. If I put a little bit of water in here, you'll see that it's obviously hotter than 188. But this will give me some kind of reference so that if I can kind of understand how to read this over time, this might give me a way of helping make the roast more consistent in the future by treating this as a relative or kind of a roast specific type of reading rather than actual reading. The roast I'm looking for today is I'm going to try to take it to what they call on their website a city roast. And that means that I'll be looking to stop the roast shortly after the first crack. They should be kind of a brown, maybe slightly dark brown, but they should not yet be oily, and definitely not. This is probably the lightest roast actually that they recommend on the Sweet Maria's website. So this will take a bit of time because the bean has gotta get up to over 400 degrees, varying degrees from 410 to 460 are the recommended coffee roasting temperatures. Of course, I'm not going to I've done this before. This reading is not going to show close to 400 as I get there. It's going to show somewhat less. And we see it's starting to cook, and the chaff is starting to come up off of these beans. You might not have seen it, but some chaff just kind of flew out from the beans. And you'll see that chaff is kind of flying out of the pan now. That shows that the coffee is starting to cook. We see that there's some darker spots here, and I'm going to want to roast the coffee. And I don't want to flip it too vigorous, otherwise they might shoot out of the pan. But I do need to keep this kind of turned over so that I can get as even a roast as possible. Now with this pan roasting method compared to a machine, the roast is not going to be super even. That's simply impossible. Just looking for something where I have everything in the kind of the brown area. So things are happening relatively quickly. They say that this coffee roasting process is a process of both sight and sound. Roasted coffee will go to two phases. As it reaches the city roast, it'll pass through what's called first crack, and we'll hear actually a fairly loud crack come out of these guys. And then as you get to espresso level roast, we'll pick up what they call the second crack. Some of these are starting to get dark now, so I'm getting pretty close. And at the second crack, that's when you've kind of reached the maximum you want for coffee. I am not going to go to the second crack today. I want a city roast, a lighter roast, and so I'm going to stop it just after most of these reach first crack. You should be hearing that this first crack is actually quite loud. It's kind of like popcorn. Oops, a few got away. I'm just going to go by sight now. We see that we're getting here now to, I guess what the thermometer is showing is like 368, 369. You know, the first crack really happens in the 400s. So again, that's underestimating the actual temperature, probably because of that shiny pan. Oh, this one got away. I'll throw it back in. In an ideal mechanical roast, probably have the whole thing going through the crack all at once. Here in this pan, right, this first crack phase is somewhat extended. Alright, not everything is going through first crack at the same time. As the smell at this point, they say, kind of smells like roasted bread, and that is certainly the case here. It hasn't started to emit a lot of smoke. I haven't turned the range hood on yet. If I turn the range hood on, the video could probably get pretty loud. But as we go through here, I am smelling, yes, this kind of roasted bread, this kind of Maillard reaction browning smell. It doesn't exactly smell like burning coffee, certainly, and we're not going to get there. This thing should not smell like burning coffee at all. I think we're starting to get there. So most of these are now at about the brownness that I'm looking for. Right, it's been cracking for a while. Some of them might actually get dark enough to start getting into second crack, and we've got a few, right, that are still kind of blonde looking that just might not make it. And this is, of course, some of the perils of stovetop roasting. That it's not going to be super even in a method like this. So I think this might be about all that I'm going to be able to get. So I'm going to turn down the heat. I'm going to put this into the colander here, and I'm going to swirl this around to dry, or to cool down here. So that kind of made a mess. I really shouldn't be doing this here. I really should be doing this over the sink and then blowing off the chaff as I go along. So I'm going to do just that. I'm going to reposition us over here by the sink, and I'm going to try to blow the chaff off as we do this. Get the chaff out. A little chaff, of course, doesn't matter. I had a bunch of chaff in my last brew. Chaff isn't going to kill you. But it is nicer to have a somewhat more commercial looking batch of beans. We can see that they did brown some as they cooled. So while I do have the occasional kind of blondish looking bean here, alright, so this guy, some of these guys like this guy here, that I'll put in the center here. You might not be able to see it that clearly, but this guy is kind of blonde. But for the most part, these are pretty good looking. They've definitely evened out during the cooling process. I mean, if I had a little mini hand fan, I wouldn't have to blow these by hand. Grab one of these and try it. Yep. Definitely tastes like a light roasted coffee bean. And so like I said, I originally had this, had about 45 grams in here. I'm going to now take this over for us to weigh so that I can see how much it weighs now after roasting. So I'll tear this guy down. Alright. Zero out this so at this lighter roast, 45 went in, and about 39 came out. So actually I didn't lose that much moisture getting to this roast. If I just went slightly darker, I think I would lose a lot more weight. So now after the beans are roasted, they recommend that you sit them for at least 24 hours, and preferably for a week even, before they reach kind of prime coffee making condition. They're going to outgas. So you'll some recipes will even say you should just leave them open like this. Don't wrap them up or anything. Leave them open in the air for their first 24 hours. Then put them into a sealed container that's not too tightly sealed, because it'll still generate outgas. You'll notice that when you buy a bag of coffee, there'll be oftentimes a one-way valve on it, because they'll give out CO2 during their life and then come back, say, a week later. But I'm actually going to try drinking this tomorrow and see how much gas really comes out of these things being freshly roasted.